What would you do if you discovered that your car had a serious structural failure just before one of the biggest races of the year? That is happening to Ferrari with Hamilton. And the worst thing is that they have known it for a long time. Interlagos, a historic, unpredictable circuit, where rain can change everything and where emotions are always on the limit. Here, just before one of the most anticipated weekends of the season begins, Ferrari faces an internal crisis that threatens to unleash devastating consequences. As teams prepare the latest configurations and engineers hone simulation data, shocking news is sweeping the halls of Maranello. Lewis Hamilton's SF25 could be structurally compromised. And the worst of all is that it is not new. It is a failure that has been present throughout the season, but that until now had not been addressed with the urgency it required. It is not a mere lack of performance, a poorly calibrated engine map, or a poor choice of tires. We are talking about a physical defect that could be affecting the integrity of the chassis or the braking system of car number 44, and that, according to internal Ferrari reports, has been dragging on since the Spanish GP. The most recent technical investigation, carried out in Maranello with full access to telemetry data and worn parts after the Mexican GP, revealed irregularities in brake efficiency, prolonged thermal imbalances between the axles, and a recurring anomaly in the front suspension geometry. All of these factors combined create a disturbing pattern. Hamilton's car is reacting differently to Leclerc's, even with identical setups. The most disconcerting thing about this situation is that Ferrari has been aware of the SF25's inconsistencies long before. In previous races, such as in Singapore and Spain, the braking data and dynamic behavior of Hamilton's car had already shown unexplained deviations. However, the response was always moderate, with minimal adjustments and evasive public statements. But now, with Interlagos on the immediate horizon and the pressure to achieve at least one podium before the end of the year, ignoring this anomaly is no longer an option. Hamilton, for his part, has maintained a professional attitude, but discontent is evident. The Briton has spent more time than usual in technical meetings, asking for precise details on weight distribution, chassis torsional rigidity, and wear on critical components. According to paddock sources, he would have requested an extra simulator session in Maranello before flying to Brazil, something he only does when he believes that the car does not respond consistently with his driving. This discovery not only threatens Ferrari's immediate performance at Interlagos, but also calls into question the technical management of the entire 2025 season. If Hamilton's car has indeed been running with a structural disadvantage and no one stopped it, we are facing a major management and supervision error. And in a team like Ferrari, with the history, media pressure, and expectations that come with it, these types of mistakes are not easily forgiven. The Hamilton case at Ferrari did not begin in Brazil. The truth is that this bomb had been building pressure under the surface for months. From the early stages of the championship, there were signs, warnings, and even moments of technical desperation that were ignored or, worse still, deliberately covered up. This year's story is that of an entire season where the symptoms were visible, but the treatment never came. And each race left open wounds. Everything began to go seriously wrong at the Spanish Grand Prix. There, Lewis Hamilton was explicit on the radio. "This car is the worst I have ever driven in my life." The phrase shook the fans, but within the team it generated even more tension. It wasn't a superficial complaint, it was a mechanical alarm. The car had an anomalous, unpredictable, and deeply unstable behavior from the middle of the race. The pilot perceived it clearly. The balance of the car was completely broken when the fuel went down and the tires began to degrade. The difference between the reactions of the SF25 at the beginning and at the end of the test was neither normal nor justifiable with the typical parameters of wear or track evolution. After the race, Ferrari engineers privately confirmed that there was a real problem. They detected a mechanical failure that affected both Hamilton and Leclerc, although the Briton seemed to receive the impact more severely. The telemetry showed irregularities in the lateral transfer of weight and in the thermal distribution of the brakes. But then came the most controversial decision of the year. The team ordered silence. No pilot was to speak publicly about the technical discovery. It was a political decision rather than a technical one. Ferrari chose to preserve its media image over internal transparency, a pattern that, as the races progressed, was repeated on more than one occasion. Hamilton, forced to contain his frustration, later revealed that both cars were affected and that he was relieved to know that it was not his fault as a driver. Because during the race he had come to question whether he had lost the ability to interpret the car. That feeling of helplessness, of not knowing if the error is the pilot or the material, is one of the most destructive for any elite competitor. It was only at the end of the television interviews that the engineers confessed that they had identified the problem. A revelation that, more than comforting, revealed the level of operational disconnection between the pilot and the technical team. From that moment on, Ferrari entered a dynamic of damage control. But instead of fixing the root bug, the team seemed to focus on minimizing its media impact. And that, in modern Formula One, is a recipe for disaster. Because while other teams like McLaren and Mercedes were evolving their cars with precise data and proactive decisions, Ferrari was sailing blind. Each race brought a new variant of the same problem: loss of performance in long runs, thermal imbalance in the brakes, and a disproportionate degradation of the rear tires. The most critical point of this downward spiral came in Singapore. There, the technical failure stopped being silent and became an obvious scandal. Ferrari forced Hamilton to do lift and coast from lap 2. In simple terms, that means the driver had to stop accelerating early and let the car slide into the corner without engine thrust, to reduce stress on the brakes. The result was catastrophic. Hamilton lost up to 44 seconds in the last 2 laps, and a 5-second penalty ended up destroying his career. The dramatic thing is that this emergency strategy was not the product of a contingency, but rather of prior simulation mismanagement. The brake ventilation was insufficient for the thermal conditions of the circuit, and the decision not to modify it was made consciously so as not to compromise aerodynamics on the straight. The words of Matteo Tognanelli, head of track engineering, in the week after the race made it clear: Formula One is always a balance between risk and performance. But in Singapore, we clearly miscalculated. That confession, made in Austin, reflects the level of improvisation with which Ferrari managed critical problems. And although the team tried to give an image of control and responsibility, the truth is that for many paddock observers, this was confirmation that something deeper was wrong in the team's operational structure. The common denominator in all these episodes is the same attitude: minimize, silence, and move forward without resolving. And that has had an obvious cost, not only in terms of results but also in confidence. Hamilton has come to doubt the tools the team gives him. In several practice sessions, he has been seen arguing for long periods with his race engineer, asking for changes that are not always applied. And although his adaptation to Leclerc's braking style has improved, the car does not respond as it should. The lack of technical consistency has become an insurmountable barrier. A season that began with promises of redemption has become a compendium of ignored technical errors, erratic decisions, and imposed silences. And now, with the Brazilian GP as the setting, all those decisions are once again taking their toll. The question floating around Maranello is not whether Ferrari can fix Hamilton's car. The real question is, how long has it been broken and who decided not to fix it? Interlagos is not just a circuit. It's a verdict. The Sao Paulo track is a relentless test for teams and drivers. With variable radius curves, downhill braking, extreme traction demands, and an altitude that punishes engine performance, everything that is wrong with a single-seater is revealed. Ferrari knows it, and that awareness has permeated every decision made leading up to the Brazilian Grand Prix. After the technical discovery affecting Lewis Hamilton's SF25, the team finds itself at a historic crossroads. It's not just about correcting a bug. It's about deciding what kind of team Ferrari wants to be in this new era. But none of that guarantees a solution. Because the problem in essence is not just technical. It's cultural. It is structural. Ferrari is caught between the legacy of a brand that demands perfection and the reality of an organization that, for years, has normalized error. And what's happening with Hamilton is just the most recent manifestation of that unresolved conflict. The immediate impact in Brazil is already being felt. Hamilton, who arrived with the hope of fighting for his first podium with Ferrari, now faces a scenario of absolute uncertainty. In the first sessions, the data indicates a marginal improvement in braking stability, but the long-run pace is still insufficient to compete against McLaren or Red Bull. More worrying is the internal distance compared to Charles Leclerc, whose car, although also affected in the past, has shown more predictable behavior in recent weekends. The contrast is uncomfortable, especially because it brings to the table a debate that Ferrari has tried to avoid. Has this car been developed for Leclerc, leaving Hamilton in the background? Ferrari has failed in something deeper than delivering performance. It has failed to build a structure of trust. Not only has the team given Hamilton a car that is not up to his abilities, but it has also taken too long to acknowledge his mistakes. Every race in which action has not been taken, every session ignored, every feedback minimized has been one more step towards this crisis of credibility. And now, the project that was supposed to mark a renaissance could end up becoming a warning for future generations. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.